A single recording, one that Jasmine hadn't yet mentioned, hung over the room like a silent storm, ready to break and raise questions far beyond the scope of this hearing. By the time Patel's legal team scrambled to request a suspension of testimony, the media machine had already roared to life. It wasn't just social media anymore, where platforms were already ablaze with speculation and outrage. Cable news channels had lined up panels, radio hosts were tuning in, political podcasts were dissecting every angle, and even morning talk shows had made this story the centerpiece. The narrative was no longer about policy or procedure. It was about a man trying desperately to claw his way out of something spiraling far beyond his control. CNN had a panel on standby, dissecting every word. MSNBC brought in 2 constitutional law experts to analyze the legal implications. Over on Fox News, the framing was different, more cautious, more measured, but even they couldn't ignore the storm Patel had walked straight into. The clips were too clear, the evidence too plain. The debate had transcended partisan lines. It was no longer left versus right. It had become about honesty, power, and the inevitable consequences when those in authority tried to dodge accountability. Outside the building, a crowd began to gather. Protesters showed up carrying signs, some in support of Crockett, others demanding a deeper, more thorough investigation. Cameras pivoted to capture every angle. Police scrambled to set up temporary barricades. The atmosphere was tense, charged. What should have been a routine congressional hearing now resembled the scene outside a courthouse on the day of a high-profile verdict. Inside a cramped side room, Patel's legal team huddled closely. One of his aides leaned in, whispering with urgency, "There's audio now." "They've got it cued." The audio hadn't even been played yet, but its presence alone shifted the room's energy. Patel sat frozen, the first time all day he had been still. He didn't speak or protest. He just stared at the floor, absorbing the muffled chatter drifting in from the hallway. His lawyer leaned closer, voice low but firm, "You've got one chance to explain it before they do." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett remained calm and composed in the hearing chamber. She was intently reviewing a printed transcript tied directly to the audio file. Her lips pressed tightly, not in anger, but in sharp focus. Brenda, her legal assistant, leaned in beside her, eyes narrowed. "Are we sure we want to play it now?" Brenda asked quietly. "We hold it until the chairman reconvenes," Jasmine replied steadily. "He's going to want it on the record." It took nearly an hour for the room to be ready again. Members filed back in slowly, deliberately avoiding eye contact with the gathering sea of cameras. The hearing room wasn't just packed, it was brimming to capacity. Journalists jammed shoulder to shoulder. Even staff from neighboring congressional offices slipped in through side doors, pretending to be on official business just to catch a glimpse of what was about to unfold. Chairman DuPont tapped the gavel 3 times to restore order. "We resume today's hearing with additional evidence submitted by Representative Crockett. Proceed." Jasmine adjusted her microphone with deliberate precision. "What you are about to hear was recovered from an internal training session held over Zoom last year. Mr. Patel, while you were serving as a senior advisor, you hosted this meeting. During this session, you spoke about internal practices for communication and protocol. Is that correct?" Patel remained silent. The chairman's voice cut through again. "Mr. Patel, please respond." Patel's voice came out flat, lacking any inflection. "If you say it's from a session, I won't deny it." "Good," Jasmine said quietly. "Because we clipped a specific portion. It lasts 45 seconds. She nodded to Brenda. The room's lighting dimmed slightly as the audio began to play. Patel's voice filled the space, casual and confident. Nothing like the defeated man sitting silently under the spotlight now. "Keep comms clean. If you've got anything that could even look like it crosses the line, send it through Signal. Never email. And if anyone asks later, deny knowledge unless you're backed into a corner." A collective gasp swept through the room, not a dramatic one, but the quiet, stunned kind that comes when people suddenly realize they've just seen the tip of an iceberg rather than its full depth. Jasmine paused, allowing the weight of those words to settle in the room. Brenda clicked a button, and another snippet played. "We're not writing this stuff down. That's how people get pulled into hearings. You want cover? Use private channels. You want risk? Go formal. Your choice. Patel lowered his gaze. The fight had drained from his eyes. His lawyer whispered something into his ear, but he didn't move. Chairman DuPont leaned forward, voice steady and sharp. Mr. Patel, that voice, is it yours? Yes, Patel admitted quietly. Do you retract any of those statements? No. Jasmine leaned in closer to the microphone. Then let the record show these were not just offhand remarks. These were instructions coming from someone with clearance, from someone who knew better. Patel said nothing. The chairman's gavel hit the desk once more. This hearing will enter an extended review phase. Testimony will be forwarded to the Oversight Committee, and legal counsel will coordinate with the Department of Justice. And just like that, the story shifted yet again, from scandal to legal matter. Outside the Capitol, the media frenzy had reached a fever pitch. News trucks fired up their satellite feeds, reporters scrambled for live shots, and the buzz of anticipation hung thick in the air. But inside the hearing room, Jasmine leaned toward Brenda, her voice low, a flicker of disbelief and cautious excitement in her eyes. We weren't even looking for that clip, Jasmine whispered. Brenda blinked, trying to process what she'd just heard. It came in anonymously. Jasmine nodded slightly, her gaze sharp and steady. Someone sent it, yes. But more than that, someone wanted it found. That single admission changed the game. Whoever had leaked that audio knew exactly the chaos it would unleash. And yet, they chose to send it anyway, knowingly. The media exploded, dissecting every syllable of Patel's recorded words. His name trended relentlessly, paired with damning words like cover-up, deception, perjury. Yet beneath the spotlight, in the quiet backrooms far from public view, another story was unfolding, one of deliberate moves and unseen players. This hidden narrative had begun 2 weeks earlier, just a few blocks away from the Capitol in a nondescript government building. Melinda Kash, 28 years old and razor-sharp, had been deep in the basement archives of the Intelligence Subcommittee's staff wing. Her daily grind was tedious, cross-referencing transcripts, flagging duplicates, sorting years of neglected paperwork, but Melinda had a secret talent. She listened. Not just to what was said, but to what was whispered, joked about in hallways, half-hidden in passing conversations. One afternoon, Melinda overheard 2 staffers laughing about a mysterious ghost drive, a tiny USB device no one officially acknowledged. They treated it like an inside joke, but Melinda's eyes narrowed. She wrote down the name they dropped casually, W Staff Line. Returning to her archive work, she dug through old entries, tracing emails and metadata where that code name surfaced. They were rare, almost non-existent, just 4 or 5 mentions, but every single one pointed to the same inbox, Kash Patel's. Melinda pulled on that thread cautiously, unraveling what no one else had dared to touch. The more she uncovered, the more the whole operation came apart. She found emails sent through shadowy private accounts, encrypted messages that bypassed official servers, and references to secret communications no one wanted known. Melinda didn't tell a soul. Not her supervisor, not her friends, not even her closest confidants. Instead, she quietly compiled all the evidence she could find, verified the authenticity of the documents, and placed them inside an unmarked envelope. That envelope sat in her apartment for 4 days, days filled with restless nights and careful consideration, before she finally decided to act. On her day off, Melinda walked into Representative Jasmine Crockett's local district office in Dallas. Without a word, she handed the envelope to the receptionist and simply said, "Give this to her." Then she left as quietly as she had come. Back in Washington, Jasmine had no idea where the documents came from at first. But the markings on the papers were unmistakable, clean, original, and untouched by congressional servers. Her legal team pored over every page, calling in 3 specialists who independently confirmed the same. These files had not passed through any standard channels. Then there was the audio file. It arrived separately, encrypted, and sent from an anonymous source with no traceable metadata. But the voice? Unmistakably Patel's. The date on the file placed it nearly a year before the hearing. Someone else wanted the truth to come out. But they weren't ready to reveal themselves yet. In the weeks following Patel's public unraveling, Jasmine sat in her office surrounded by walls of paper and a sprawling whiteboard filled with names, dates, arrows, and phone records. Brenda paced back and forth, her voice low but urgent. If 5 people were involved, and we've only confirmed Patel, who else is shielding this? Jasmine's gaze was steely. There's no way he did this alone. He had help. And not just from staffers. Brenda's eyes narrowed. He mentioned a playbook, somebody wrote it. Jasmine nodded slowly. Do you think Devlin flips? Brenda exhaled sharply. If he believes he's the only one left holding the bag, yeah. Eventually. At the very same moment, in a brownstone near Arlington, Rob Devlin sat alone at his desk. Mid-40s, he had quietly moved through multiple government departments over the years. Not flashy, but known as a fixer, someone who cleaned up problems before they exploded into scandals. His burner phone buzzed once, displaying an unknown number. One word, tomorrow. Devlin's fingers didn't move. He exhaled deeply, already knowing what was coming. This wasn't over. The very next morning, Jasmine received another anonymous envelope, this time thin and unassuming, just a single sheet of paper printed in bold letters. Check your server logs from March 17th. You missed something. Brenda read the note over Jasmine's shoulder, her brow furrowed. They're still feeding us or maybe baiting us. Jasmine closed the folder carefully. But why now? Because someone thought Kash Patel would take the fall for all of it, Jasmine said quietly. And when he didn't go down quietly, they panicked. That night, Jasmine took the long way home. She drove through Bethesda, not out of necessity, but because sometimes distance and quiet help bring clarity. Somewhere between the glow of streetlights and the low hum of the radio, it hit her. This wasn't just about one man with a shady memo or a bad habit. It was a machine, well-oiled, polished, hidden in plain sight. A quiet architecture of avoidance, built carefully over years. Someone had counted on it staying hidden forever. But now, the wrong person had looked too closely. And the cracks were finally beginning to show. The hearing that had begun as a straightforward inquiry into alleged misconduct had erupted into a spectacle that neither Kash Patel nor anyone else in Washington could have anticipated. The release of the anonymous audio recording, the recording Jasmine Crockett had not even planned to introduce, had ripped open a window into a world of carefully guarded secrets, protocols designed to obscure the truth, and a system that thrived on evasion. As the hearing concluded, it was clear to everyone in the room, and millions watching at home, that this was no longer simply a political scandal. It was a reckoning. The moment when Patel admitted to owning the voice on the tape was the turning point. No longer could he deny or deflect. His silence afterwards spoke volumes, an unspoken confession etched on his face, leaving a void filled only with the weight of accountability he could no longer escape. The media frenzy that followed was instantaneous and relentless. Social media exploded with clips of Patel's admission. Hashtags like #coverup and #perjury trended for days. Major cable news networks reoriented their coverage from mere political analysis to intense legal scrutiny. Panels of experts debated not only Patel's possible fate but also the broader implications for congressional transparency and ethics. Morning talk shows dissected every phrase he uttered or didn't utter, painting a picture of a man trapped in a web of his own making. Outside the Capitol building, the scene shifted from routine political hustle to something resembling a high-stakes courtroom drama. Protesters arrived with signs, some showing support for Crockett's efforts, others demanding deeper investigations into systemic abuses. Police officers erected barricades, media crews crowded the steps, their satellite trucks streaming live feeds across the nation. The air was thick with anticipation and a collective demand for justice. Inside the hearing room, the atmosphere remained tense but measured. Jasmine Crockett sat composed, her eyes scanning the transcript printouts linked to the incriminating audio. She was not triumphant, but resolute, her focus razor-sharp. Beside her, Brenda paced quietly, whispering updates. The team had not anticipated the arrival of that recording, yet its impact was undeniable. Jasmine's decision to hold it until the hearing reconvened was strategic, a move to ensure it became part of the official record. Once the chairman's gavel signaled the continuation of the hearing, Jasmine began presenting the new evidence. She carefully explained the origin of the recording, an internal training session hosted by Patel nearly a year prior, captured over a Zoom call. The casual tone of Patel's voice on the recording was jarring in contrast to the man now sitting before the committee, defensive and subdued. His instructions on avoiding official channels, on using encrypted messaging apps, and denying knowledge when pressed, were chilling reminders of how systemic cover-ups could be orchestrated from within the very institutions meant to uphold transparency. The room fell silent as the audio played. Patel's voice was confident, almost dismissive as he outlined methods to keep communications clean and off the official record. There was no remorse, only cold pragmatism. The reactions were subtle but palpable, soft gasps, a shifting of seats, the quiet realization among those present that this was just the tip of a much larger iceberg. Patel's legal team offered no resistance. His attorney leaned in with a whisper, urging him to prepare an explanation, a defense, but Patel remained unmoving. Chairman DuPont pressed for confirmation. Was the voice truly Patel's? Was he willing to retract his statements? Patel's answers were brief and unyielding. The voice was his, and no, he did not retract anything. The hearing was then extended, escalating from a congressional inquiry into an official investigation. Legal teams from the Department of Justice were brought in, oversight committees mobilized. What had started as a scandal was now a full-blown legal matter, with consequences that could ripple far beyond the walls of the Capitol. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, another story was unfolding. Melinda Kash, a young aide with the Intelligence Subcommittee, had unknowingly sparked the unraveling of the entire scheme weeks earlier. Working quietly in the dusty archives, she had stumbled upon references to a mysterious ghost drive, a USB device that wasn't supposed to exist. Her meticulous cross-referencing uncovered an email trail pointing directly to Patel's inbox, a trail that didn't match any official records. Melinda's discovery was deliberate but cautious. She didn't tell her supervisor, she didn't broadcast her findings. Instead, she compiled what she could, carefully verified each document, and delivered the evidence anonymously to Crockett's local district office. This act of quiet courage set in motion the revelations that followed. Jasmine's team vetted every page of the documents. Specialists confirmed the files had never passed through official congressional servers, anomalies that pointed to deliberate efforts to conceal information. Then the encrypted audio file arrived, also anonymous but impossible to ignore. In Jasmine's office, she and Brenda mapped out the growing conspiracy. If Patel was just one actor in this scheme, then who else was involved? Was Devlin, a shadowy fixer known for smoothing over political crises, willing to break ranks? And who else had helped craft this playbook of secrecy? Far from the Capitol, Rob Devlin sat alone in his Arlington brownstone, the weight of the unfolding scandal pressing down on him. When an unknown number texted him a single word, "Tomorrow," he didn't respond immediately. He knew that the story was far from over. The following day, another anonymous message arrived for Jasmine, this time a thin envelope containing a single sheet of paper. Check your server logs from March 17th. You missed something. The realization hit her hard. This wasn't just about Patel. Someone was still feeding them information, perhaps even baiting them, pushing the investigation forward from the shadows. That night, as she drove through the quiet streets of Bethesda, Jasmine let the hum of the city and the distant glow of streetlights settle her thoughts. She understood, with a clarity that both empowered and terrified her, that she was no longer dealing with a simple scandal. This was a complex, polished machine of concealment and avoidance, built over years with layers of protection. And someone had counted on it remaining hidden. Until now. The Patel hearing didn't just end with flashing cameras and breaking news. It lingered, in the conversations people had at dinner tables, in the questions students asked in classrooms, in the petitions circulated by college activists demanding more transparency. It became a symbol of why people must watch power closely, not just for the headlines, but for the silence that follows. In quiet government offices, audits began. Lists of names emerged, people who had used private email accounts, exchanged encrypted messages, and operated behind layers of secrecy. For many, it was the first time anyone had checked. Melinda Cash returned to her modest routine, sorting through files, passing colleagues unaware of the storm she had helped unleash. She didn't seek credit, didn't crave attention. All she wanted was for people to do their jobs honestly. Kash Patel disappeared from public view. No social media posts, no interviews. His legal team's vague statement about misunderstandings was largely ignored. Whether or not charges would be filed, the real damage was done, not just to Patel, but to the opaque system that had protected him. Most people, still detached from the story, assumed the truth could be buried. They believed that speaking loudly enough, confidently enough, would keep secrets safe. But this time, the truth caught up. It was quiet, persistent, time-stamped and undeniable. For every Patel, there was a Jasmine. For every Jasmine, a Melinda. Behind them, countless others, students, citizens, activists, waiting, watching, questioning. That's where real change begins. Not in shouting down the system, but in daring to ask the questions the system hoped no one would ask. If this story made you pause, made you think, even for a moment, subscribe, stay engaged, and keep asking. Because the story isn't over. Not by a long shot.